If somebody asked you to recount a crime that you committed, would you be able to give an unbiased portrayal of events, or would you paint yourself in a better light and throw your partner under the bus? I'm going to give you a minute to think about that while I introduce this channel. Hi, my name is Sam, and welcome to my YouTube channel. On this channel, I talk about shows that were canceled after one season. I talk about the characters, the storylines, and the way that I would want the show to go if I was a writer on season 2. Okay, let me just talk about something real quick. So this is the second time that I'm recording this because over the past couple of days between when I first recorded this and now, my video on the Society has gotten so many views. It went from having like less than 50 views and having about 20 subscribers on this channel to having 10,000 views and 200 subscribers. So first, thank you for that. That was really cool. I've been watching the numbers just like add up. I have not stopped talking about it. But also that means that I wanted to make this video better. So I'm redoing everything that I've recorded so far. Thank you if I didn't already say that, and if I did, thank you again. I'm really glad that other people really liked that video. I've been having a lot of fun responding to people in the comments. I am keeping up my promise though that this video is going to be shorter than the last one, partially because I don't want to do 2 really long videos in a row. So I went into my little database of one-season TV shows because I made that, and in that I have the name of the show, where I can find it, how many episodes there is, how long the episodes are, what genre it is. So I was trying to find a show that was 10 episodes or less and half-hour episodes, so it would only take a day or 2 for me to watch the whole thing. And I found a show that fit both of those qualities, and that show is Fakes. Fakes is a Canadian young adult comedy that was released by CBC Gem in Canada and Netflix internationally. At the start of the series, it says that it's a true story, and so here's the thing. I spent a lot of time trying to figure out if there were any articles or anything like that, and I couldn't find that, but I did watch some interviews with the people who worked on the show, and they said that there is an urban legend in Vancouver about 2 teenagers who created this whole fake ID empire, and that's what the show is about. It's about 2 best friends, Zoe and Becca, who create the largest fake ID empire in North America. The show uses alternating perspectives and fourth wall breaks to create this unreliable narration so the audience never really knows what truly happened. The show also uses text overlays to show what time of day it is, how much time is left for something, to create this feeling of suspense. It has 10 20-minute episodes which were all released on September 1st, 2022, but 1 year later, on September 19th, 2023, it was announced that it was going to be cancelled and there would be no second season. But over the course of 2023, it was nominated for multiple awards in Canada, so it was doing well. I watched the show around when it first came out, but I haven't watched it since. So in preparation for this rewatch, I tried to think of everything that I remembered from the first time. And all I really remembered was that there were 2 main characters, the episodes alternated perspectives, it was about these 2 teenagers who created a fake ID empire, and that was really all I remembered, so I was really excited to go into this rewatch. Okay, I promised that this video was going to be shorter than the other one, so let's just jump right into the character descriptions. Writing character descriptions for this show was really interesting because since each episode alternates perspective between the 2 characters, we never really know who the characters are objectively. We just know who they view themselves as and who the other characters view themselves as. Does that make sense? One of the first things that I wrote down when I was writing about Zoe, who's played by Amelia Baranek, is that she is anxious. But exactly how anxious is she? When the episodes are from her perspective, it's not as much. She is still very anxious, but when it's from Becca's perspective, it's definitely way higher. What I can definitely say about Zoe, though, is that she cares about school and doing well academically, and that originally the money from the ID business was going to be for her college fund. She's very protective of the people she cares about, her mom being definitely at the top of that list, but I would say Becca as well, even though their friendship definitely has their rough moments. Still, she blames Becca for the mess that they get into. The 2 of them have different opinions about who brought up the idea of fake IDs. While Zoe can say that yes, she's the one who brought up making one, Becca asked her to make the ID, and Becca took the whole thing too far. Meanwhile, from Becca's perspective, she says that Zoe brought up the whole thing and Becca was just going along with it. Becca, who's played by Jennifer Tong, is definitely not as anxious as Zoe, but she also has her moments when they get into the depths of this fake ID business, when they get into the real stressful moments. Her family has very high standards for her, but at this point in the series, she's kind of decided which standards she is going to meet and which ones she's not going to. She's constantly trying to find the balance of making her family proud and also doing what she wants to do. Becca and Zoe also come from very different backgrounds, which is interesting to see just the two of them together versus the two of them separate in each of their respective episodes. Oh, I meant to use this as the background for the two of them. But anyway. Finally, the third main character of the show, and my personal favorite, is Trist. Trist is played by Richard Harmon, which, fun fact, is a longtime friend of the creator of the show, David Turco. They had known each other since, childhood. So the character Trist works various retail jobs over the course of the series, and also deals drugs as a side hustle, which is why Becca thinks that Trist will be good at moving the fake IDs. Trist has a daughter, but he's not very involved in her life, aside from short visits. But he also doesn't really talk about that with other people very much. Depending on whether the episode is from Zoe or Becca's perspective, Trist's attitude is very different. If the episode is from Zoe's perspective, Trist can be super intimidating, but if the episode is from Becca's perspective, then he's just somebody who, knows what he wants and needs. At least that's my interpretation. Also, this is just my interpretation, but Trist is an adult, a young adult definitely, only a couple years older than Zoe and Becca, but there definitely is a maturity difference. I don't know if Zoe and Becca necessarily see that, but I think that Trist definitely sees that. There are also many secondary characters throughout the series. There's Clem, who's Becca's boyfriend. There's Ken, who's a football player. There's Sophie and Sally, who are some other classmates. And then there's also the families of Becca and Zoe, who we meet throughout the series. Okay, let's go to the episode summary. Episode 1 is called Teen Drinking is Very Bad, and it's from Zoe's perspective. Remember, each episode alternates between character perspectives. The show starts with the police breaking up this big party. Becca and Zoe explain that they built the largest fake ID empire in North America, and that this is going to be the story about how that all fell apart. So let's go back to the beginning. Zoe goes to the library and uses her student ID. She's a little nervous when she goes to the desk, but we can just chalk that up to her being anxious. We'll get back to that later. Zoe arrives home to find her brother Jason taking food from the fridge and money from a box. He offers Zoe some of the money, but she refuses to take it because she knows that it's not Jason's money to give. Zoe explains to us that she and Becca have been best friends ever since they were kids, and even though Becca hasn't always been the best of friends to Zoe, Zoe would still do anything to Becca, including pick Becca up from a party, which is what she is on her way to do now. She picks up Becca, and Becca is drunk.
I love men that are available! Why are you doing that with your voice?
She says that Zoe should have come to the party and that Clem says hi. Clem being Becca's boyfriend. Becca sees that Zoe has a fake ID and tells Zoe that she lost hers tonight. Zoe says that it's not a fake ID, it's just a fake student card so she can use the library. Becca asks if Zoe is able to make her a fake ID and offers $400.
Can you make me one? A UPC student card? Oh my god, no, dummy. Fake ID. I don't think so.
Zoe addresses the camera and is like, see, this is Becca's idea. She started it. Zoe brings Becca home and they see a woman leaving Becca's house who Becca screams at. While Zoe originally wasn't going to make the fake ID, she eventually takes the $400 and replaces that with the money that Jason stole out of the box. She again addresses to the audience how this was Becca's idea, but also she was just curious about how hard it was going to be to make a fake ID. The next day, the two of them go to Clem's soccer game, and Zoe asks Becca how the relationship is, and Becca says that it's fine, but she's going to break up with Clem at the end of the year. Zoe gives Becca the fake ID, and Becca's like, this looks totally real, we should make another one. To which Zoe's like, yep, Becca's idea. They go shopping, and Becca introduces Zoe to Trist, who's working at the clothing store. Becca also offers to buy clothes for Zoe.
Let me buy it for you. No.
It'd be like old times.
Becca shows Trist the fake ID that they made for him and asks Trist if he would be able to move them.
Looks pretty good. You tested it yet?
So the two of them go to a liquor store where the IDs are almost confiscated. The next day, other students start asking Zoe if she can make fake IDs for them. The rumor is starting to get around. This causes Zoe to have a panic attack, to drop her things, and run to the bathroom. The episode ends with Zoe in prison saying that Becca is out living her best life, but Becca is like, no, that is not what happened.
Fuck that. She's full of shit. This is what really happened. First of all, she was the one.
Episode 2 starts at the same party that episode 1 did, but similarly, that's the end of the story. Let's go back to the start. Becca uses a fake ID at a liquor store and it's confiscated, compared to episode 1 when she said that she lost it. Zoe picks Becca up from the party, but Unlike how in the first episode, in that car ride, Zoe was completely sober and serious and Becca was really drunk, now the two of them are both having fun in the car. They're both singing along to the radio.
I love men that are unavailable!
You see what I meant? How depending on whose episode the perspective is from, the interpretation of events can be completely different. Zoe and Becca talk about making fake IDs, with Becca emphasizing to the audience that this was Zoe's idea. Becca is impressed that Zoe was able to make a fake ID so quickly, and Zoe says, like, yeah, just making one was really fast, but if she was going to make more than one, that's when she would need help.
I could probably do more if I had some help.
Oh, I'm not planning on losing another.
No, I mean more. Like, for other people.
Your idea. Are you serious?
What?
You're Zoe fucking Christensen. That's illegal.
Becca addresses the audience again and says, see, yeah, like this was all Zoe's idea. Originally, they were going to do all of this at home with one of the printers that they had, but then the printer breaks, so they have to do this at school, which makes Zoe really nervous because she thinks that somebody's going to come in and see it. But Becca says to Zoe that this was Zoe's idea, and Zoe doesn't say no. At the clothing store that night, Zoe asks Becca to buy her clothes, in contrast to the first episode when Becca offers.
Can you get these for me?
Duh. Gimme.
Becca also introduces Zoe to Trist. Trist says that he can move 200 IDs and asks if the barcode on the back works, to which Zoe says yes. Remember, they haven't tested it yet.
Does the barcode work?
Nah, I'm just fucking with you. It's not a t-shirt. Wait. No, it's definitely not.
So Becca's surprised because she's like, we don't know if it works or not. Zoe's just saying yes. The two of them go to a liquor store and the IDs almost get confiscated, but on the way out, Becca steals a bottle. The two of them sit outside and talk, which I'm going to get to the more important part in a second. But near the beginning of this conversation, Zoe says that she lost the game, and that wouldn't really be that important except for the fact that you now did too.
You lose the game once you think about the game.
Anyway, so Becca says that Zoe should come to more parties, things like that, because Zoe sort of acts like her staying in and studying all the time makes her better than everybody else. And Zoe's like, I don't think that. Like, do people think that I think that? And Becca's like, yes. The two argue about it and Becca ends up leaving. In Zoe's telling of events, this argument never happened. This conversation was just her asking about Trist. The next day, Becca arrives at school and she sees Zoe's stuff scattered all over the ground. She goes to the bathroom where she realizes that Zoe's having a panic attack. Becca helps Zoe calm down and Zoe says that she doesn't want to make the IDs anymore. And Becca says that's okay, we don't have to. But outside of the school, Trist is there and he says that he was able to pre-sell the 200 IDs and so they need to get them to him. Becca and Zoe are like, we don't want to do that anymore. But Trist is like, okay, well then you owe me $30,000 for not giving me the fake IDs.
Did what you told me to do. I pre-sold 200 at 150 a pop. 200 times 150, 30K. I'm gonna need it by next week.
Which causes Zoe to panic again. I just realized that I forgot to say that episode 2 is called Yo, I Got a Fake ID though. Episode 3 is called Don't Panic, Definitely Don't, and it's from Zoe's perspective. This episode starts with Zoe's perspective of the end of episode 2, where Trist just said that they either need to make 200 fake IDs or give him $30,000.
You got 30K on you?
What are you talking about?
I did what you told me to do. I pre-sold 200 at 150 a piece. 200 times 150, you guessed it, 30K.
200, no,
I
that's...
need them by next week.
Yeah, but we didn't say that you should do that.
See, what you said was you could deliver, didn't you?
Yeah, but we didn't say. That's what we said.
Here's the situation. I already owe the money to somebody else. I'm a businessman, and this is how you do business. So you can either get me 200 fakes or give me 30K. Weigh it out.
Trist from Zoe's perspective is a lot more threatening, as I mentioned earlier, which is just interesting to see.
Who is this guy that we owe money? What could he do to us?
Okay, I don't know. He's just a weird guy.
How weird?
I don't know.
How weird, Becca!
Stop yelling at me!
Zoe and Becca weigh their different options about whether they have to make the fake IDs or if they can do something else, like run away and create a new life for themselves.
No, I don't want to mess with Trist. What does that mean? Just cross that one out, okay?
But eventually they do start working on the fake IDs, with Zoe doing most of the work, if not all of the work. Basically all of the work. And she says to Becca that it would go a lot faster if she helped, but that doesn't make Becca do anything. They're still working at school, and so their work is interrupted when other people enter the room. Which, okay, so this didn't happen, but I thought it would be interesting if it did. When Zoe unplugs the hard drive, like without properly ejecting it, if that like corrupted the file or something like that. But maybe I'm just a little sensitive to that because I had to completely redo the Why Are You Like This video when the hard drive wasn't removed properly. I thought that would be interesting. That did not happen, but Zoe has dinner with her mom and her brother, and she confronts Jason, her brother, for taking their mom's emergency fund. Becca suggests that they buy printers so they don't have to keep working on this at school. Trist meets the two of them outside and says that if you are ever in a situation where you need to lose a finger and you have a choice in the matter, just telling you this, your non-dominant index finger, that's the one that you should choose. Just making this a fact that you should know. And Zoe is like, why is this a fact that I need to know?
Non-dominant index finger.
What?
Best finger to lose. If someone's cutting off one of your fingers, wants you to choose, you pick that one. I know it's a little crazy because most people would pick pinky, but apparently you use your pinky for way more shit every day. Shouldn't you be going?
Zoe has been so preoccupied about making these fake IDs that she's forgotten to do her homework, which is also, again, making her panic. But Clem is able to calm her down, as well as Sally, who's another classmate and is sitting on the other side of Zoe. Zoe and Becca go to buy all of the printer stuff that they need, but Becca's card is declined, so it's suggested that they go to the self-service printing area, and they try to do that, but again, the printers just stop working. They were only able to make 28 IDs, and when they get home, they realize that all of them were printed slightly misaligned. Becca asks Zoe if she can go to an event that Clem is going to be at because Becca isn't able to, and while they're there, Clem thanks Zoe for being such a good friend.
Today was just kind of important to me, and thanks for coming, Zoe. You're a good friend.
Zoe returns home and finds a threatening note on her door, which causes her to panic, but Becca says, I can explain. Episode 4 is called We Are the Captains Now, and it's from Becca's perspective. Becca works on the fake IDs, telling the audience that Zoe is freaking out.
Oh my God, that's walking in the thing! Ah!
She received a note on her door telling her to stop making the fake IDs, and particularly to stop selling them to students at a local Catholic school, signed at the bottom with a username. She knows that Zoe will not handle this well, so she tries to get to Zoe's house to take off these notes before Zoe notices. Trist checks up on the two to see how the status of the 200 IDs is going. He also tells them a fun fact that he learned recently.
Hey, did you guys know apparently your non-dominant index finger is the best one to lose? Crazy, right? You would have thought it would have been your pinky finger, but fun fact, just learned it today. Anyway, how's the ID stuff going?
Zoe has the idea to print the IDs at the local print center, but the printer malfunctions. Becca hasn't been able to figure out who's been putting these notes on their doors, but she hears her younger sister playing a video game against somebody with the same username that was signed at the bottom of the notes, and through that, she's able to figure out who's sending them. She asks Ken and the other football guys to scare these kids into leaving her and Zoe alone, but tells them, like, don't tackle them or anything, just scare them. Ken also kisses her before realizing that, like, that's not what Becca called him over for.
I'm so sorry. I didn't ask for consent. That wasn't cool.
There's also, like, a bit of a thing happening between Becca and Ken. Becca is still dating Clem at this point, but also remember that Becca said that she was going to break up with Clem, so, like, the relationship isn't that great. Anyway, so Ken kisses Becca before asking that he should have asked for consent first, which made me write in my notes, I miss consent Kelly. Throwback to my video on the society. Becca comes home to find another note on her door, and her sister walks right past it. She's, like, so on her phone she doesn't even notice. Knowing that somebody is still sending those notes, Becca goes to Zoe's house, but she wasn't able to get to the note fast enough, so Zoe has found the note and is freaking out about it. Zoe asks for Trist's number, and Becca gives her a fake number just to end the conversation. The next day, Zoe confronts Becca about giving her a fake number, and while they're having this conversation, Ken comes over and tells Becca that, yep, they scared the kids, but good thing that Becca said don't tackle them, because then they would have broken some of the computers in the lab, to which Zoe is like, what kids, what computers, what lab, what are you talking about? Becca and Zoe go to the computer lab where these kids are printing fake IDs. At first, the kids say that they're not afraid of Becca and Zoe until Zoe points out that the IDs that these kids are making aren't valid.
Listen up, you little shit. I've had a hell of a week, okay? You think I'm gonna let you be another hiccup in my day?
Zoe, maybe we
and look at this. Is this a joke? The weight on this isn't even in kilograms. And class 2 is not achievable until the age of 19 according to the new GDL grading system. These are garbage. Oh shit. Let's look at these. Oh yeah, just like I thought. Garbage, 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 garbage. This, garbage, garbage, goodbye, garbage. Ooh, look at these. They're so pretty. Just kidding, they're garbage. The last time your IDs were even valid was in 1998.
They take over that business and they celebrate their takeover. They bring Trist the IDs and say that it was just the two of them who worked on it. They do not say that anybody else did it. And Trist says, great, if you ever want to do this again, let him know and they can do some more.
You girls are cool as shit, you know that?
We are?
Oh yeah. You ever want to make more, hit me up. But in the meantime, come on, bring it in. You know you want.
After all of this, the two of them reminisce on their friendship and talk about how fun this was to work on these IDs, that it was a little bit of a rush. Becca then addresses the audience and says that Zoe probably skips this part when she gives her retelling of events. But Zoe gives Becca a written proposal of her business plan of how they can create a fake ID empire. And so the two of them call up Trist. My question that I have here is, we don't ever see these kids again, right? Like, in the future, when they're making all of these fake IDs, it's just Zoe and Becca and Trist. It was to the point that I was like, did I miss something? And I watched the series again on like double speed to make sure that I didn't miss anything. But no, I think that the kids are just there for these 200 IDs. I don't remember seeing them again, unless it's something off screen, unless it's something that we're just supposed to like believe is happening. But the two of them in later episodes are freaking out about how many IDs they have to make. So are they still using this like group of kids? I don't know. That's something that I'm just gonna put to the side. But anyway, that was a question that I had that I would like more information on, but we're continuing on. Episode 5 is called Real G's Move in Silence Like Lasagna, and it is a Trist-centric episode. Oh, I was so excited about this. I think that this was really interesting because while Trist has been a main character this whole time, everything has been shown through Becca and Zoe's perspective. So Trist is there, but we never really know what he's thinking. But now we do. Oh, this is so exciting. So remember how at the beginning of the series, Trist worked at the clothing store? He no longer works there, and now he works at a cafe in the same mall. He uses the cafe both like as his job and also as a cover to sell pills. He talks to one of his regulars, Leo, who is a businessman, and previously said that he would get Trist an opportunity to meet with some of his coworkers about possibly investing in a business idea that Trist has. Today was supposed to be the day that Trist was supposed to go and talk to people, but Leo says that he forgot, but he says that if Trist comes at the very end of the day, there might still be some people around who can meet with him. At the end of his shift, Trist goes to another store in the mall and buys a stuffed animal, which he is really proud to have. In his car, he hypes himself up before giving this pitch. He listens to motivational tapes. He's very excited. He's feeling really good. Okay, so he describes his idea as Tinder meets Airbnb. You would use the app to get a hotel room so you wouldn't have to do the walk of shame the next day. He has this whole presentation set up, but at a certain point he says that he has a certain slide but can't find it, and that's when everybody's attention sort of trails off. People weren't really interested anyway, but that's definitely when it fades. Afterwards, Leo tells Trist that they're gonna pass on the idea and also to never ask him for that again because that was embarrassing. Leo accidentally leaves his keys, and that's gonna come back later. While driving home, Trist is really frustrated that that didn't go well, and he gets a call from Zoe and Becca asking if they're still on to meet that night, and he's like, yes. The three of them meet in the business office that Trist stole the keys from, so then they have like the screen for the PowerPoint presentation and all that. Zoe and Becca are giving Trist the formal pitch for their ID business.
Other options to optimize revenue stream include a 6-month license expiry for returning customers.
Overnight orders for subscribers like Amazon Prime.
And affirmative action for hiring reps.
Dealer has such a nasty connotation.
They also give Trist a printed out formal proposal, and Trist is like, you guys printed out evidence of the crime that you want to commit? Which also, this is like the third time that they've printed out something involving this. And in the earlier times, they've destroyed the evidence. They burned the list of ways to get out of making the IDs, things like that.
Fine, I was taking notes. Yeah, but maybe don't. What if we just don't?
Is this what I think it is?
It wasn't until the end of last episode and this one where they print out the exact plans of what they want to do, and at no point are they like, no, we need to destroy this. Trist is the one who's like, you can't have this.
What the fuck is this?
It's a formal proposal?
Do you not like it?
Well, no, it's great. It's just, you know, it's evidence. You can't print this shit.
I knew we should have done a PDF.
Oh, how many of these did you print? For fuck's sake. Okay, give them over.
Trist takes all of the copies. He has to take the duck out of the bag to make room for him. And Becca and Zoe are like, oh, that's so cute. He's like, we're not talking about this. We're not talking about why I have a stuffed animal duck in my bag. Part of the business idea was to find people to be the distributors of the IDs and also to find new people to buy them. So Trist invites Zoe and Becca to a party that he's holding that night. Trist waits outside of the party watching his crypto value go up and down, which also, earlier, you know how I mentioned that there's a lot of text overlays about like dates and things like that? On this one, there's an overlay of his crypto value. Anyway, so outside of the party, Trist is not having a good time, but then when he goes inside, he pretends like nothing is wrong. He is faking that he is having a good time. And he places the stuffed duck on a table because he's like, I have to go outside, I have to go do something. He goes outside and meets with Bobby, who gives him a bag of pills in this like clear Ziploc bag, and Trist was like, you couldn't have made it less obvious. And Bobby is like, I know somebody who can invest in your idea. Trist is like, is this a real investor, like a serious investor? And Bobby's like, yeah, I can introduce you to him later tonight. You just need to hold on to a gun for me for a couple hours. And Trist is like, no, I am not holding on to a gun. But Bobby is like, no, if you hold on to this gun for a couple hours, I will introduce you to this guy. He's a serious investor. Like he will invest in your idea. So Trist very hesitantly takes the gun and immediately hides it outside. He does not keep it on him. And then he goes back into the party where that stuffed duck is gone. And he asked is not even right. He yells at everybody saying, where is the duck?
Hey, everybody having a good time tonight? Yeah! Then who the fuck thought it a good idea to steal my limited edition Golden Duck plushie? Huh? And be brave now.
Sorry. I was just taking selfies.
I apologize for the interruption. Resume getting fucked.
He takes it back and the party resumes. Somebody is trying to start a fight with security, so Trist kicks them out, but the guy says that he's going to call the police. So Trist knows that the police are on their way and he needs to get everybody out. Meanwhile, Zoe and Becca are trying to figure out who they want their first hires to be.
I think that we should hire Sophie. She can keep a secret and is discreet. She's popular, everyone loves her. And I think we should hire Sally. She's a little weird, but I trust her. Plus, she's also popular. I mean, she is popular with the people. You know, like regular people like me. And look, she is non-threatening, and she's the least suspicious person that I know.
So Trist says, okay, let's hire both. Trist is able to get everybody out of the party before the police come in, and he's wearing this button shirt the whole time, but when the police come, he takes off that shirt, and the t-shirt that he's wearing underneath belongs to the company that this party is in. It's like in a warehouse. And he's able to convince the police that he works for that company and he came to pick up some stuff, and then that's when he saw all of these teens underage drinking. And he's so glad that the police came by. And here's his business card to prove that he really does work there. That was believable enough to get the cops to leave. At this point, Bobby has come back, and so Trist goes to convince this investor to invest in his business. A limousine comes into the parking lot. Trist is like, okay, who is this investor guy? And he goes in, and the investor guy's name is Guy. And Trist tries to make a joke out of this, and Guy is like, that's not funny. You think this is a joke?
Trist, this is Guy.
Like the guy, or his name is Guy.
He's got some bollocks.
Well, okay, whoa, man. Look, I think I'm in the wrong car, so why don't I just...
Don't move.
Guy shoots Bobby in the leg and is like, that'll heal. What's your business pitch? Trist tells Guy the whole Tinder meets Airbnb thing and is like, that's not a good idea. But he does see the fake ID business proposal in Trist's bag and is like, tell me about that. Trist leaves, and we can tell that now this whole fake ID thing, there's this whole thing that Becca and Zoe don't know about. It's all in the background of this. They're off doing their own thing, and now Trist is going to be hiding this whole secret. There's all of this new pressure to getting these fake IDs that the two of them have no idea about. So Trist goes back into his car, and out of frustration, he accidentally rips the stuffed duck. He finally gets home around 4 a.m., and just a couple hours later, he goes to his ex's house to drop off the stuffed duck, which he says she can sew back together, but it's the same duck that he had when he was a kid, so that's why he wanted his daughter to have it. He also tries to give her some money, which she says, like, she doesn't need money, but he wants her to take it anyways. Trist asks if he can hold his daughter, but his ex says, like, no, I don't think that's a good idea. And so she leaves.
Get some sleep. Something.
I will. Daddy loves you.
And Trist says, like, Daddy loves you, as the two of them are walking away. And he gets a notification on his phone that he has a meeting in half an hour. He goes to this new penthouse and meets with Zoe and Becca. The two of them are like, oh, this is so cool. Like, this is the new space that we're going to be making the IDs in. Like, this is so nice. And Trist is like, don't get too comfortable. This is just temporary. And he doesn't tell them where this whole penthouse is coming from. They just accept that this is the space that they're in now. But they also can't stay there for long, like right now, because Trist has to go back to work at the cafe, and like that, we have 24 hours in the life of Trist. I thought that this episode was really cool. As I mentioned, we got to see everything from Trist's perspective. Now we know that there's all of this stuff happening that only Trist knows about and that Zoe and Becca don't. So now, when we see all of the things happening from Zoe and Becca's perspectives in the upcoming episodes, we know that there's all of this stuff going on in the back of Trist's character and the way that he is acting during all of this. And I just think that's really cool. Anyway, so that's my favorite episode. I think that that was a really great addition to be right in the middle of the series to have a Trist-centric episode. Episode 6 is called A Cup of Ambition, and it's from Zoe's perspective. Earlier in the series, we got the explanation of how the ID making process works, but now we're getting the explanation of how the ID selling process works. Zoe's explaining this to us, and on screen we see Sophie, who's the person that Becca chose.
Step 1, approach your targets, people that want to be seen. Step 2, gather their pictures. Professional passport photos, neutral expression, proper lighting. No selfies, no filters. No one is allowed to look good on their driver's license, even fake ones. You can make the best forgery in the world, but if the photo's not right, no one will buy it. Step 3, hand these pictures to your handlers. Step 4, your handlers give these images to our invisible third-party man in the shadows, who creates the fakes for us. Step 5, deliver, receive, split. Got it?
Then we realize that Zoe isn't just saying it to us, like in earlier episodes, but Zoe is explaining this to Sally, who's the person that she chose.
Thank you so much for an amazing opportunity. Though clever as clever can be, a Crichton of early romance, you must start and stop it and blow your own trumpet. Oh, trust me, you haven't a chance.
Becca doesn't think that Sally is right for the job, but Trist slightly defends her, saying that he thinks that Sally can get the loser market. Zoe definitely sees herself in Sally and says that Sally will meet Sophie's number soon. In this episode's text overlays, rather than seeing dates and times, we see costs and revenues, and we see the amount of money that Zoe has made. We're up to like $25,000 at this point. This is more than the tuition for the original college that she was looking at, so now she has her eyes set on Harvard. Zoe suspects that Jason is drunk again, and her mom is sort of in denial about that. Zoe tells Jason that he cannot show up drunk again. Zoe's proud of Sally for getting 20 ID orders, so she brags to Becca, but Becca is like, Sophie got 100. It's time for Sally to get the IDs back to people, and Zoe's like, Sally, take this seriously. It's not a performance. Sally is a theater kid, by the way. Sally's like, I got it. Don't worry about it. But Zoe addresses the audience and is like, I should have stopped her right there. Specifically saying,
I should have tackled her right there and then.
Which comes back in the next episode because Becca says the exact same thing. Zoe's mom tells her that Jason is taking the car because he lost his job and he needs it for interviews. And Zoe's like, between him losing his job and telling all these stories at dinner, and he's acting like dad, but Zoe's mom is like, he's nothing like he's nothing like his dad. Very much in denial of seeing any sort of alcoholic tendencies. Sally tells Zoe and Becca that she lost the fake IDs. Becca and Zoe try to find this bag, but they're nervous about what it could mean if they can't find it. Zoe blames herself for trusting Sally, but Becca is like, you know what, I also could have been nicer to her. But after searching a bunch of different places, then Becca starts blaming Zoe and is like, yeah, no, this is your fault. Clem calls Becca and Becca ignores the call, telling Zoe that if she doesn't answer the phone, then that will not involve Clem and what they're doing. It can give him this plausible deniability. But Clem then calls Zoe, and so Zoe just pretends that she and Becca aren't together and says that she'll text Becca and tell her to call. This whole time, Becca is the one who's driving, and she asks Zoe what happened to her car. So she says that Jason has it and he's the one driving, and so Zoe has to use the bus, and Zoe and her mom both have to use the bus, which makes them realize that Sally doesn't have a car and she has to use the bus. So that means that they have to go check the bus.
Sally doesn't drive.
Oh shit! No, she doesn't. No, that bitch takes the bus.
They go to the lost and found area for the bus, and just their luck, that night was the night that all of the stuff that was there was sent out for auction. But the person who's there says that if they get there before it closes, then they might be able to get their stuff back before it gets put to auction, especially because it just got there today. While they're driving to the property office, they realize that it wasn't a warehouse like they thought it was going to be, but it's the police station. At the police station, they're able to get the bag, but they don't want to use their real names for this because they don't want it to get traced back to them. So Zoe has a fake ID that Becca made earlier in the episode with the name Anita Berger on it. So Zoe says that her name is Anita Berger and uses that fake to get the bag back. She's now freaking out because she just used a fake ID at the police station, but Becca says that it's fine because they now have the fake IDs back.
Oh my god.
It's okay, it's fine. It was an accident.
Yeah, I accidentally gave a fake ID to an actual officer. Do you think... Wait, does that...
No,
I just wanna check
Zoe,
something. I
bad,
just wanna check it.
Zoe. One thing at a time, okay? What's important is that we got the bag back and... Oh, fucking course.
What?
Ah!
Are you fucking kidding me?
But they open the bag and realize that there's a piece of paper inside that says that the contents of the bag has been confiscated for investigation. Episode 7 is called All Eyes on Me, and it's from Becca's perspective. This episode starts with Zoe giving the fake ID to the police officer, and the two of them realizing in the car that the fake IDs have been seized by the police. But this time, instead of Zoe freaking out, it's Becca who's freaking out.
You just purposely gave Larry a fake ID and fake name. Your real life actual face is on their camera taking this bag. You can't look like this anymore!
Becca says that Zoe just, on camera, gave a police officer a fake ID, so now she has to change her identity. She has to change the way that she looks so they can't trace that camera footage back to her. So Becca cuts and dyes Zoe's hair. If you remember that very first scene at the very beginning when it was that party, Zoe has this like short red hair, that's where this all comes back. While this whole mess has been going on with Sally, Sophie's side of the ID business has been going very well, so she is able to get the money back to Becca and Zoe. So that's like something they don't have to worry about. Becca and Zoe call the police to see if there's any update on the things that they lost, but the police say that since it's still under active investigation, they can't give any update. The two of them are really nervous about what the upcoming chain of events is going to be. The police are going to realize the faces of the kids on the fake IDs, and those theater kids are going to rat out Sally, and then Sally is going to rat out Becca and Zoe. So they decide that they are going to become Sally's closest friends. Becca isn't the hugest fan of this because she doesn't want to be friends with Sally, but Zoe is like, no, like we have to do this so that Sally doesn't say to the police that like it was the two of them. They figure that it'll be a couple days before the police can trace everything back to them, so that means that they have some time to become so close to Sally that she would never betray them. Zoe and Becca reprint the IDs that Sally lost, and she's like, are you sure that everything's okay? And Zoe and Becca are like, yeah, everything's fine, like don't worry about it. And Becca's like,
I wish I could have tackled her earlier. You'll see.
I told you that the line from the previous episode was going to come back. Meanwhile, Becca is at home and her dad says that she needs to answer her mom's texts. She's kind of been ignoring her mom this whole time. I know that I briefly mentioned Ken earlier. Becca sees Ken kissing somebody and she gets really jealous. She's like, what are you doing? And Ken is like, we were never exclusive, like you're still actively dating Clem. And Becca's like, I didn't know that I was going to feel this way seeing you kiss somebody else. Becca also officially breaks things off with Ken. Amidst this whole Sally thing, Becca and Zoe have not told Trist about it. Trist has no idea. And so he asks how Sally is doing, and they tell him that Sally's doing great and she just sold even more IDs. That's why they're printing them. Trist says that he trusts the two of them enough that he's going to give them the spare keys to the penthouse, but reminds them that this is still temporary as he's trying to find a smaller place. Like, this is really big for the amount of things that they're doing there. Like, they don't need as big of a space. Becca calls Trist dad, and Trist is like, no, do not call me dad.
Whoa, no. No, do not call me your father.
We don't, we call you dad. You're literally saved on my phone.
There's so much wrong with that.
Trist, at least on screen, and I don't think even off screen, has not told Becca and Zoe that he has a daughter, so I think that that's why this is like particularly personal to him, like not to call him dad, but also the phone that Becca uses in this is an iPhone, or at least an iPhone looking kind of thing. That's going to come back later.
I'm moving you kids out of here at the end of the month.
This is literally why we call you dad.
You sound like my dad.
Fuck it.
Becca and Zoe, in their attempt to befriend Sally, have a sleepover, and the two of them are like, we're trying real hard to be her friend. The two of them argue about who is to blame for this whole Sally thing, but eventually they decide that they need to tell Sally about this in case she gets questioned by the police. They give her a script and tell her to follow the script exactly, and Sally's like, I want to change it. I want to give my own flair on it. And they're like, Sally, follow the script.
Can we just blame the Phantom?
Who is the Phantom, Sally?
The Phantom of the Opera? That's who I call the mysterious guy who makes the fakes. Can I just change the phrasing?
Oh, fuck no.
It's awkward phrasing. No, you can't change the phrasing. Memorize the script.
Becca's mom has returned home. The two of them do not have the closest relationship.
I know I'm hard on you, but the truth is, you can take it. And that's a good thing. The world will be hard on you. It will always be hard on you. Just as it's gonna be hard on Isabel. Strong women, like us, who look like us. It's unfair and it's a balance, but you can do it.
I can't.
Do not cry. Breathe.
We see that Becca's mom has even higher standards for her than Becca's dad does. Back with Sally, Becca and Zoe tell her that if she does not follow the script exactly, like, she could get in trouble. But Sally is still, like, taking it as a joke, and she's like, no, I can do my own thing, like, don't worry about it. And at a certain point, she is taken out of class by the police. The episode ends with Becca and Zoe fighting, like a huge fight, like a friendship-ending kind of fight.
That was mean. You are very mean. You know your gut instinct is to be a total fucking asshole, right?
The first part of the argument is drowned out, but later Zoe is yelling at Becca and basically amplifying the things that Becca's mom had said earlier in the episode.
I am a good friend, so I know that you're only saying these awful things right now because you are reeling from your shitty mom visiting.
One of the lines that I wrote down in my notes that I was like, oh, this is like very pointed, was,
my mom loves me, and it's something that I've never had to doubt. Your bitch mom will never love you the way that you want because you are a waste of space. You are gonna eat, you're gonna drink and die, no one will ever give a shit about you because no matter how hard you try, nobody actually notices you.
And this was one of the moments that I was really glad that the show was from two perspectives, because I wanted to know, did Zoe actually say this? Did Zoe say something, but this is just how Becca perceived it? I wanted to know more. Or, similarly, you know how there was another episode where Becca said that Zoe will probably skip this part when she tells her side of the story? I wanted to know, would Zoe just skip this? I had so many questions. After this whole argument, Trist comes in, and the two of them pretend like this argument did not happen. They are overly nice, but the second that he leaves, they immediately start yelling at each other again. Episode 8 is called King of Anything, and it's from Zoe's perspective. This episode starts with Zoe comforting Sally after Becca had yelled at her. Sally is really upset. She feels like she really let both of them down, but she really appreciates Zoe being nice to her, and she says that nice girls like them need to stick together, which makes Zoe feel really bad. Sally is called out of class by the police, but instead of looking really nervous like she did in the previous episode, she looks a lot more confident. She even winks towards Zoe. This is one of those moments where we really see how Zoe and Becca view Sally differently. We're also seeing that big fight from Zoe's perspective. Remember how I said that the beginning of it was all drowned out? That was the part where Becca was yelling at Zoe.
You're so pathetic! Like, look at you. Even right now, you're gonna cry.
I am not gonna cry.
You let me walk all over you because you're scared of being a boss.
I am a nice boss.
I am a good boss. My whole family is made of good bosses, and you can't even do anything without freaking the fuck out!
Well, sorry, I actually have a fucking moral conscience.
Well, you and your moral conscience have always been useless. This entire time, Zoe, your whole fucking life is just dead fucking weight.
So it seems like in this whole thing, Becca wasn't really acknowledging the part where she said anything and was just acknowledging the part where Zoe said things to her. But similarly, before Zoe can acknowledge the part where she yelled at Becca, she looks at the audience and says,
You get it. You get the idea.
so basically neither of them are acknowledging what they said. I think that that is a great use of dual perspective, and also just says a lot about the way that we talk to each other. Sophie brings Zoe her next order, which is 250 IDs, and asks what has been slowing down the process, because they used to be able to do a 2-day turnaround, and that's what Sophie was able to advertise, but now it's been taking a little longer, and she's saying that if they're not able to do that anymore, then she can't do this anymore. It just doesn't look good on her. Zoe says that no, they're gonna be able to do everything in 2 days, and also there's a little bit of some flirting going on between the two of them. Conveniently at this moment, Becca has bought a new printer that's able to print the IDs faster, but also she leaves Zoe a note saying that Zoe has to figure this out, she's not going to. The two of them aren't really talking at this point. They also haven't told Trist about this whole fight that they had. Zoe's there when Trist comes by, and he's like, oh, where's Becca? And Zoe's like, she's gonna come by later. Basically, yeah, Trist doesn't know that the two of them aren't talking. Jason offers to drive Zoe to school, and she asks him if he has been drinking. When he says no, she's like, okay, like, you can drive me to school. But then she takes the coffee cup from the car and realizes that it was full of whiskey. Clem tells Becca and Zoe that Sally got arrested because her friends from her old school ratted her out for selling fake IDs. He doesn't know that Becca and Zoe are involved in all this, so he's just telling them like it's a rumor going around school. Zoe tells Becca that the two of them both need to be there that night to make more fake IDs because they need as many hands there as possible. Which also made me wonder what happened to those middle schoolers.
Just getting their garbage!
Anyway, Clem asks Zoe if she and Becca have been fighting lately because Becca has been particularly distant and he hasn't been able to figure out why. Zoe and her mom talk, and her mom says that she had to take the bus recently instead of Jason picking her up. When Zoe tries to ask more questions about it, her mom dismisses the subject. Zoe sees her mom's scrubs folded on the kitchen table, and she decides that all the money that she's making from the ID business is going to her mom so she doesn't have to work so hard.
I'm gonna buy her that fucking hospital.
Remember how earlier Zoe said that the two of them are going to have to make the IDs because they have so many that they need to do? Becca cancels on that, and so Zoe figures out how to use the printer on her own. Trist repeatedly asks Zoe where Becca is, but she keeps ignoring the question. Jason is home again, and he tells Zoe that he's going to drive their mom to work. And when Zoe asks, like, are you drinking? He says no, but Zoe doesn't believe him, and so she slashes the tires of the car so that he is not able to drive. Sophie picks up the IDs. She's back on board.
Sounds pretty hot.
Shut up. Go Sal.
Yes, ma'am.
Clem goes to Zoe's house and says that he officially broke up with Becca, and so Zoe kisses him. Next scene, they're in bed together, and Clem says that this is going to make things complicated with Becca. He hears something outside of Zoe's window, and it is Sally yelling at Zoe.
Zoe! Let me in! Let me have her to the police station!
Right as the episode ends, Sally is tackled. What a callback. Episode 9 is called Forged in Stone or something, and it's from Becca's perspective. The episode opens with Clem going to Becca's house to break up with her, and he overhears her on the phone saying that something is an emergency, but she won't tell him what the emergency is. She breaks up with him before he can fully break up with her, like it's a whole thing. Zoe tells Becca that she figured out the printer on her own. That's all set. Becca asks her dad if her mom knows that her dad is having an affair, and he says that both of them know what the other person is doing. There's a really sweet scene between Becca and her dad where her dad says that the best thing that you can do for other people is be part of a community.
Your mother and I understand that true strength comes from family and community.
And even friendship. That's how you leave a legacy.
We survive together. We succeed together. We're strong together.
Becca gets a text from Sally saying that she's out of jail and to meet at Zoe's. Remember how in the Zoe episode previously, they heard that somebody was screaming outside of Zoe's house, but they weren't able to figure out what it was? That was Sally. And Becca is outside of Zoe's house, so she's able to hear exactly what Sally is shouting. So Becca is the one who tackles Sally.
We totally did it! Situation handled by me! Oh my god, you should have seen I tricked all the police officers!
Sally recreates the entire event, saying that she did in fact go off script, but that was what helped her in the end. Now all she has to do is just meet with a guidance counselor every once in a while, and she's fine. But Becca and Zoe tell Sally that everybody else quit and the whole thing is over, just so that she doesn't ask any more questions. Becca and Zoe work on the IDs together, and they say that they don't have to talk to each other, they can just work. Trist comes in with a bandaged hand, and they're like, what happened? And Trist is like, I'm not talking about that. Why didn't you tell me that Sally got arrested?
Hey, Trist, what's up?
What happened to your hand?
Oh, this? Yeah, I don't know. Why don't you tell me? Yeah, when were you gonna tell me that Sally was fucking arrested, huh?
Ooh, how do you know
have
about
anything to do
that?
with your hand? You got your hand.
Wrong answer.
What the fuck?
Time is up.
Wait, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Trist?
What are you doing? Oh my God!
I am not fucking around, ladies. Do you understand that?
He breaks one of the printers and tells the two of them to get out of the space, but Becca's like, I paid for these printers, they're mine. And Trist is like, I signed for the printers, they have my name on it, and to just get out. We also find out here that Becca and Zoe named all of their printers after prominent women in politics. They are all prominent American politicians, which I thought was interesting. My note here is, I was curious about why they're all American politicians and not Canadian, but also I don't know enough about Canadian politics to give alternatives.
For $1, name a woman.
I apologize to Canadian politicians for not knowing enough. Becca apologizes to Zoe about the argument from a couple episodes ago, saying that she just lashed out because of her own insecurities, and Zoe also apologizes, but it doesn't seem nearly as sincere. But also remember that this episode is from Becca's perspective, so that might be why.
I'm sorry too.
Yeah. I did the whole self-therapy thing, and looking back, she gave me nothing.
At school, Sally is now super popular because she was arrested and now got out of jail, so that makes her super cool. Also, she is now a junior cadet because after the whole conversation that she had with the police, remember when she improvised the script a little bit, she talked about how many kids were drinking underage. Now she's on the lookout for that and supposed to protect the teens against underage drinking, and Zoe and Becca realize that now Sally is a cop. So now even though Sally thinks that everything is over, she still has knowledge that this whole thing happened, which makes the two of them a little nervous. With the money from the ID business, Becca gets her younger sister Isabel a VR headset because this whole series Isabel has been playing a lot of video games. That's something that she really likes. But with their mom back in town, the two of them have been talking about Isabel taking over the family business, which originally the thought was that Becca would take it over, but it really seemed to everybody that Becca wouldn't want to do that, so now Isabel has been having these conversations with her parents. That means that she needs to focus a lot more on studying and preparing for that rather than playing video games. Becca goes over to Zoe's house and talks to Zoe's mom for a bit and realizes that, she's not, her normal self, something's up. But when she asks Zoe about it, Zoe just ignores the subject. The two of them wonder what Trist is hiding from them. They talk about how much this whole ID business has meant to them and how much they've really liked it, even though it's been very stressful. So they decide to go back to the penthouse with the spare key that Zoe still has. But when they get there, Trist is inside with somebody else, and he yells at the two of them to leave. He tells them to never come there again, never talk to him again, and so Becca and Zoe part ways with Trist.
What the fuck is wrong with you two?
What the fuck is wrong with you?
Who is that woman?
You know what? I don't have to answer your questions. You answer mine.
Screw that! We're done with you, Trist. You and your creepy secrets. Who the hell are you?
Yeah. You know, you used to provide raw product and infrastructure, but we're actually proving to be pretty resourceful these days.
Yeah. And I think we don't have room for you.
I'm done with the two of you. Completely done! Shut the fuck up! It's a residential area!
At the same time, though, both Becca and Zoe have made spare keys to the penthouse, so they're like, we're not leaving. We're gonna continue this. Episode 10 is called She Said, She Said, and it is a multiple perspective episode. It is from both Becca and Zoe's perspective. So, from Zoe's perspective, from Becca's perspective, Zoe's perspective. Trist-centric episode. I don't know what shirt I'm supposed to wear for that. You know what? I'll wear the Trist shirt. I don't think that got enough wear in this video. Becca and Zoe break into the penthouse and they try to steal the printers, but it's too big to fit into the elevator. So they go downstairs to the front desk and they ask if they can use the service elevator. The person at the front desk says, what's your name? Where do you live? And they give Trist's name as the person who owns the penthouse, and the guy's like, that's not the name that I have on file. and so they leave. They're also very confused because, like, who owns this penthouse if not Trist? Since this episode is from both Zoe and Becca's perspective, we have a scene where both of them suggest having a party, and in both of their perspectives, the other person suggests the party.
Those assholes broke part of the drama stage just to see if they could. We're gonna host a party. Those assholes broke part of the drama stage just to see if they could.
What if we threw them a party?
And also, when Sophie comes in, because in this scene they're talking to Sophie, how Sophie is perceived changes based on who the scene is focused on. Like, the interaction between Becca and Sophie is very different than the interaction between Zoe and Sophie. Because remember how there was a little bit of flirting when there was the Sophie and Zoe scene a couple episodes ago? Like, that's still there when it's from Zoe's perspective, but not when it's from Becca's perspective. Oh, it's just really interesting. I really like this part. They invite the football guys up to the penthouse, and their idea here is that maybe they can get them to help get the printer down the elevator. And they have this whole plan in mind. At this point, the two are really good at making plans, like crime plans. Here's the whole thing. So Zoe is going to go down to the front desk. She's going to cause a distraction. She's going to trip and have the person at the front desk go to help her. That's going to get him away from the security cameras. At that point, Becca and the football guys are going to stall the elevator. And then, since the elevator is going to be broken, the person at the front desk is going to say to Zoe, like, okay, you can use the surface elevator to leave the building. Which also had me wondering, like, is this lobby not on the first floor? But anyway, I'm just gonna, we're just gonna put that aside. And it works. She gets the key to the surface elevator. But being in the elevator with all of the football guys when it breaks, that really shook Becca up because she was like right in the middle of it all. And so now she's like a little panicky, like she's not feeling well. So Zoe tells Becca to go lie down, and Becca's like, we're in the middle of this whole thing. Like, I shouldn't go lie down. I can lay down later. But Zoe's like, no, we have time. You can go lay down. Clem arrives to the party, and when Becca sees that Clem is there, she's like, actually, yeah, I will go lie down. Clem asks Zoe what's going on because now Becca has been distant towards him, Zoe has been distant towards him, and yeah, just what's going on. And Zoe says that she just needed some space, but eventually she does tell him about the whole ID business.
I am done being lied to. I'm tired of this shit.
Okay.
Sally was screaming about the cops. I'm not an idiot. Tell me exactly what is happening here, or I'll ask Rebecca myself and tell her everything.
Okay, so for the last term, Rebecca and I have been printing fake IDs, and we are really, really good at it. So we have to get Sally and Sophie to help us out. We are making so much money. Oh my God, you don't even know. But Rebecca, she didn't want to involve you, and that is why she didn't tell you anything. That's the truth.
This whole conversation had me wondering. Okay, so in the show so far, if something is just one of the two of them, Zoe and Becca, and somebody else, it's usually from their perspective. But I want to know, like, is this scene between Zoe and Clem from Zoe's perspective, or is it from Becca's perspective? Because, well, here's why I'm wondering. Did Zoe tell Clem this, like, and is she acknowledging that she told him? Or did Clem find out, and is Becca, like, the only person that could have told him is Zoe, so this conversation must have happened even though I wasn't in the room. I'm just assuming that this conversation happened. We have no idea. And I think that's really interesting. I'd like some confirmation about that. At this point, the police break up the party, which brings us back to the very first scene of the series. Becca hides in the bathroom, picks up her phone, and says, "Daddy, call the lawyer." Let me just say, this was not a smartphone. I'm gonna put a picture of this in right now.
You're literally saved on my phone.
There's so much wrong with that.
Remember in the pilot, we have that moment of Becca saying, "Daddy, call the lawyer."
Daddy, call the lawyer.
Now we realize that she was talking to Trist.
Becca, what's going on? Are you in the penthouse right now?
I'm sorry.
Do not say anything to the cops, got it?
Wait, how did you know they were cops?
Fuck, destroy this phone.
Trist, did you have something to do with this?
Zoe is taken outside by the police, and Becca says that we're all caught up by this point. Okay, remember when I said that this was a dual perspective episode? Just kidding, this is a triple perspective episode, and the last section is from Trist's perspective. Okay, so remember Guy from the last Trist perspective episode? He found out that Sally got arrested. Okay, he thought this whole time that the fake ID business was a one-man thing, that it was just Trist, because Trist didn't want to get Zoe and Becca involved. He didn't want Guy to find out about anything else. But Guy found out about Sally. Okay, going back a bit. Guy finds out that Sally got arrested, and so he kidnaps Trist and is going to full on beat him up until he realizes how good the fake IDs are.
I was planning on breaking your back like a fucking Kit Kat. Oh. But fuck me, this shit. Can you do labels? You know, logos, tags?
Yeah, absolutely.
He says to Trist that he won't break all of his bones. He will only break a few bones, and asks Trist what finger he wants broken. So Trist says, we know which one. The non-dominant index finger. Now that's a callback. Remember when Trist was in the penthouse and there was that other woman there, and then Zoe and Becca came in and Trist was like, get out, I don't want to see you guys again? That was because he didn't want Guy's team to know that there were other people involved. And with Zoe and Becca having keys to the penthouse, now they're like, who are these other people? Because it's Guy's penthouse. So why did these like random kids have keys to Guy's penthouse? Since the fake IDs were so good, Guy wanted Trist to make like labels for knockoff bags. No, not knockoffs, replicas.
Is he winding me up? Fuck it, knockoffs. Knockoffs are what you find at the night market, mate. These are perfect brand replicas.
Absolutely they are.
Trist is having a little bit of trouble because he's not the one who's making them, so he's not the one who's really good at them. But again, he's not telling them that Zoe and Becca are involved. Guy finds out that Zoe and Becca are the ones who are really making the IDs, not Trist, and he says to Trist, I want to meet the two of them. Trist is like, yes, they're the ones who are making the IDs, but they have no idea that Guy exists. They have no idea that all this other stuff is happening, and he doesn't want to involve them, and Guy is like, no, I'm meeting them. Another throwback. Okay, remember in the last Trist-centric episode, when he got that big bag of pills in the clear bag, he hides it in the penthouse and calls the police to report illegal activity with ties to organized crime. So now we get that phone call from Becca from Trist's perspective, where he says that Becca wasn't supposed to be there at this point. And yeah, he's the one who called the police, but nobody was supposed to be in there. He was supposed to just be calling the police about Guy's penthouse, and it was supposed to be Guy getting in trouble. He was trying to shut everything down. Also a callback to the Trist episode when he called the police to get everything shut down, but he was sort of one step ahead of everything. So now Zoe and Becca are in the back of the police car, and they're trying to figure out what's going to happen next. They're worried about how their family is going to react. Becca is panicking, and Zoe is strangely calm. And Becca is like, how are you so calm? And Zoe's like, I'm not calm. I'm going through every situation in my head, and this is not even the worst scenario. The two of them say that they are glad that the other person is there with them and that they're not alone through all of this. They're asked by a police officer to get out of the car, so they do, but then hoods are put on their heads and they're brought into another car. Guy's car. Guy offers them $100,000 to work with him, and that's when the two of them realize that Trist is in the trunk of the car tied up.
What could you do with 3 Roland printers and $100,000?
$100,000?
That's right. Don't look at him, look at me. Hey, I'm the one that got you out of jail. That's the prick that called the cops.
Then they're all brought out of the car. They realize that Trist is beat up too. He's thrown to the ground. Guy asks Zoe and Becca which out of the two of them is the one in charge and holds out a gun, sort of aims it towards Trist. And that's when the screen cuts to black. That's the end. Hello, some time has passed, but let's continue. Now's the part of the video where I talk about what I would do if I was a writer on season 2. And here's one of the interesting things about this show. So the start of episode 1 talks about how the series would end, or at least how Zoe's story would end, with her being in prison and with Becca being free and living her life. Or at least that's what it's like from Zoe's perspective. So I tried to think about how we could get to that point. But first, I had to think about all of the crimes that were committed in season 1, and here's the ones that I could think about off the top of my head. We have forgery for the fake IDs. That one's pretty obvious. We have forgery with the bags and the labels, which at this point Trist is the only person who's involved with, but now that Guy has involved Zoe and Becca, we can just sort of assume that they might be involved with this too. Giving false identification to law enforcement, that's something that just Zoe did. Becca was there for that, but Zoe was the one who actually gave the fake ID to the police officer. Trespassing, definitely for the warehouse, but I also argue that the penthouse that they used for printing the fake IDs, I think that if they get on Guy's bad side, he might say that the 3 of them were trespassing on his property. Even then, like the fact that the person at the front desk didn't know who they were, like they could just get in trouble for that alone. Possession and distribution of illicit substances, That's something that, again, is mostly Trist. So I thought about what paths we could take to get to episode 1's ending. How could we get to Zoe being in prison and not Becca? Out of everything that I just said, most of the things were either Zoe doing the actual action or Trist doing the actual action. Becca was doing all of this too, but it was either, in my opinion,
That's my opinion!
I feel like a lot of it was either the three of them or Zoe and Trist. Becca was very much involved. Becca was using fake IDs. Becca was drinking underage. Becca was doing all of this too. But I think that if there was going to be an argument of who was going to face the most charges, I think that one could argue that Becca would get the least amount. That's an argument that I think we could give, but we're going to get more into that in a bit. If I had just one episode, I would probably say that using the fake ID with the police officer would be what gets Zoe in trouble. Especially, let's pretend that Guy isn't involved. If that wasn't happening now, I think that the easiest way to have Zoe get in trouble is just using the fake ID. That would be the easiest thing. But I think that if we have a little bit more time to tell the story, I think that the two of them should have slightly different paths, rather than them doing the same actions like they both did in season 1. I was trying to think of some ways that we could get Zoe and Becca to separate, and I think that Guy, as the antagonist of the second season, would really play a role here. So really all of my ideas revolve around that. Something about Zoe is that in season 1, it seems like she always has a crush on somebody, and I think that that could be really taken advantage of in season 2. Throughout season 1, she sleeps with Clem, she flirts with Sophie, Zoe asks about Trist, and to which Becca sort of is like, why are you asking about Trist like that? But I think that that's something that Guy could really take advantage of when it comes to Zoe, and that could be used to separate Zoe from Becca. I think that her tendency to fall for people might be her downfall. I think that also Zoe's family financial status could definitely be taken advantage of by Guy in season 2, and that would also create a rift between her and Becca because the two of them do come from such different backgrounds. Even with Becca not being in line to be in charge of the family business anymore, she still has a much larger financial cushion than Zoe does. And while yes, at the end of season 1, Guy offers both Zoe and Becca $100,000 to work on the IDs for him, he might offer Zoe a little more just because he knows Zoe's background. I wonder if he could say something along the lines of like, I'll make sure that your mom is financially taken care of, things like that, as long as Zoe does what he says. I think that like threatening the protection of her family would convince Zoe to do whatever she can. Similarly, I think that now that Becca isn't in line to lead her family business, I think that Guy might be able to convince Becca to still do businessy things. I think that Guy interacting with both of their families might be a really interesting thing to do in season 2. So I think it would be really interesting if he would be able to get Becca into some sort of businessy position so that she had that experience, so maybe she could prove herself to her family. The long story short of all of this is that I think that if he is able to separate the two of them, then both of them would think that they need to do this business for their own reasons, and it might push themselves to pressure the other person as well. You need to do this for me, and not realize that the other person is also having all of these things that they need to do. I don't know if that makes any sense, but it's this idea that I had in my mind. It's sort of like how Trist in season 1 had all of these reasons for continuing the business that he didn't tell Zoe and Becca about. It would be sort of like that. But I think that the most interesting storytelling option would be if Becca was also in prison, but the two of them have not seen each other in so long that they truly have no idea what the other person is up to. The two of them have just been so separated from each other that they just have no idea. Because remember at the end of the first episode, Zoe is saying that Becca is off living her life, and we don't see that from Becca's perspective. We just have Becca saying that's not true. We don't have Becca saying, this is what's happening to me. So I think that that would actually be the most interesting thing. Season 2 could really be the start of that separation between the two of them. We could start to see the two of them hiding a lot of things from each other, a lot of secrets. Oh, I think that could be really interesting. Some other things that I would like to see is the involvement of Zoe and Becca's families. I think that making Jason and Isabel larger characters in season 2 would be really interesting. Like, Isabel now has to be focused on her future. She can't focus all of her time on video games anymore. what happens if she's now distracted by her older sister being involved in this whole fake ID business? I would also be interested in seeing how Trist being over 18 affects all of the things that they're doing. Because at this point, Zoe and Becca are still 17, but Trist is over 18. Or also, what happens if one of them turns 18 in the middle of this? Because then now, officially, they would not be minors and all of the things would be charged as adults. I will say I tried to look into the Criminal Code of Canada to see what the different charges would be. But, first of all, Google loves to make your results location specific, even if you search British Columbia or Canada, or anything in quotation marks. I did have to go into Canada's criminal code to really research all of this. And basically, to just sum it all up, I think that what it would really boil down to is how many of the things that they did would be considered as part of their sentence, and also how much Guy is able to cover, how much Guy is exposing, whether all of Guy's crimes are exposed as well, which by the end of the series, I think that that would be a thing. What I would want is the show ending with all of it being exposed. That's how I would end the show, having literally everything fall apart. One more thing that I had in my notes, irrelevant to all of these ID and criminal crimes, the aftermath of Zoe and Clem getting together, I would be really interested in seeing the aftermath of that. Because Becca says that she basically deleted Clem from her mind after the breakup. I would want to see the scene of her finding out about Zoe and Clem being together. How does she react to that? Or do we not see that scene at all? Does she truly just not acknowledge Clem from that point on? Those are two completely different ways to move on. I think that both of those options would be really cool to consider. Let's talk about my favorite things from the series. My favorite episode, as I think I mentioned before, was Real G's Move in Silence Like Lasagna, aka the Trist-centric episode. I thought it was really great to have that break between Zoe and Becca's perspectives, and also it was cool to see a day in Trist's life. The fact that it truly was a day in his life. Years later, despite not really remembering the show very well, I did remember that episode, or at least the concept of that episode. While the other episodes are from other characters' perspectives seeing Trist, this episode let us see the other characters through Trist's perspective, which I thought was really cool. I also thought that in this episode you really started to feel for Trist. He became much more of a multi-dimensional character since you started to see it all basically through his eyes. Becca and Zoe only see part of his story, so this really allowed the audience to see so much more than the two of them had ever experienced. It allowed us to see Trist without the bias. And I really liked that. I thought it was a really cool thing to do partway through the series. I think that the dual perspective worked so well. One of my favorite moments that used that was the big fight between Becca and Zoe. I like how in the fight we only see what the characters felt, we didn't see what they said. I think that it really shows how in the midst of those moments, sometimes we say things and we don't really realize how what we're saying affects other people. I think that was a really cool way of showing that. And it also showed that the characters aren't acknowledging their actions. So like, it also was cool in the context of the show. I also thought it was cool to see how the different perspectives changed how other characters were portrayed. We would see slight differences between the way that Trist was portrayed, or how Sophie was portrayed, or how Sally was portrayed, things like that. Sometimes it was major differences, like how Zoe saw Trist as somewhat more intimidating, but also sometimes there were very subtle differences. Like if there was a line that was repeated in multiple episodes, sometimes that line was said slightly differently, and I thought that that was really interesting. Also, this wasn't just for big things. There was one moment in one of the earlier episodes when Zoe comes into school with a birdhouse that she made, and in her perspective, the birdhouse was really big, it was like really nice. When it was from Becca's perspective, it was not as nice. And so that also just shows that when you see things from your perspective, sometimes you're very proud of the things that you do. Sometimes you think of yourself very positively, but when things are shown through somebody else's perspective, it's not the same at all. I also think that this show did a really good job at both foreshadowing and doing callbacks. There were a lot of recurring lines or moments that came back. I thought that was really funny and it added a lot of comedy. Also, despite all of the differences the characters have throughout the show, it added little bits of similarities, which I thought was cool. While I was working on this, I tried to find any articles that validated that Vancouver urban legend about the teenagers creating the fake ID empire, and I couldn't. I couldn't find anything that talked about it, so I went onto Reddit to ask the people on there if they had any information. While the people on there didn't have any answers specifically about that, I did get some responses about different places where they got fake IDs. Or if they didn't get fake IDs, then the places where they knew they could have gotten fake IDs if they wanted. And it was all the same places, which was really funny. Everybody was referencing the exact same place, which I thought was so funny. It's shut down at this point, but anyway, so the long story short is that I never got a clear answer about whether this is a true story like the show says at the beginning. But nevertheless, I still really like the show. I think it's a very fun watch, and so if you're looking for a quick comedy, Fakes is on Netflix. I recommend it. If you've watched the show, who do you think is the more reliable narrator, Zoe or Becca? Or do you think that neither of them are reliable at all? Do you think that Trist is the most reliable narrator? Let me know in the comments. Let me know if there's any other shows that you want me to talk about. Thank you again so much for all of the support on this channel. I will see you in the next video. Bye!